All right, let's turn our attention now to the world of politics here in South Africa. The Democratic Alliance says its moonshot pact is ready for liftoff. It's going to host a national convention for that pact throughout this winter. The pact is aimed at creating a coalition to unseat the ANC in next year's elections. 6 parties, including the IFP and Action SA, have agreed to attend the meeting, but a few parties have so far declined the invitation. One of those is the ACDP. Well, let's hear from Reverend Kenneth Meshoe this evening, joining us to give us a sense of why. Reverend, good evening. I appreciate your time. So you're telling us that the DA is not quite your cup of political tea. Why is that? Good evening.
Good evening, Gareth, and to all the viewers at home. I want to make a correction following the statement that was made by the leader of the DA this morning, Mr. John Steenhuisen, who said the ACDP has rejected a plea for cooperation. That is not true, because as it is known in the country, the ACDP is cooperating with the DA in a number of municipalities. What has happened this time? Something that we have complained about as coalition partners in the past. The DA has a mentality of boss talking to followers, or they have a big brother mentality where they make decisions, and after making decisions, they present them to leaders of the opposition. We do not like that. Now, they should consult first. We were surprised, obviously, when at their elective conference, they mentioned that they have this moonshot pact with leaders of opposition parties against the ANC. Now, the other thing that we did not like with what he said that the DA is forming this pact against the number one enemy of South Africa, which is the EFF. Now, knowing from experiences of the past, it is wrong to use the word enemy going into elections. There has been many people, innocent people, who died during political violence because they were labeled enemies. So I don't see the EFF as our enemies. They are our political opponents. The ANC is not our enemies. They are our political opponents. So to go into an election saying the EFF is our enemy and the enemy of South Africa, you are going to endanger the lives of people in the townships. Because if I regard you as my enemy, you are also going to regard me as my enemy. So from what happened in the past, because of political violence, people being labeled enemies, the ACDP does not agree with that and will not participate with anybody who attacks other people as enemies, because we have seen innocent people lose their lives and we don't want a repeat of that.
I want to ask you about your deputy president saying the party, your party, ACDP, Reverend, are not going to enter into any coalition agreements or discussions before getting into the 2024 national elections. Some are suggesting that's disingenuous. You can't have people voting for the ACDP and only after the votes are cast are you going to tell them who you're willing to work with and who you're willing not to. Is that correct? Is your deputy president saying what you agree with as a party?
Well, what the deputy president said is correct, and I agree with him. But people have to understand that if you make a pact before the elections, you have to agree on some values and policies. We want to go into the elections as independent, who have their own policies, and we expect other political parties to do the same. Now, for anybody to suggest that it would not be right to do it after elections, they must be reminded that all over the world, coalitions are not formed before the elections, but they are formed after elections when you know the strength of each political party. How are you going to decide who's going to get what position and who's going to be hold this percentage or number of seats when you don't know yet who is going to be part of a government or is not going to be part of a government? So we want to see the results first, so that the strength of each political party will be measured by the votes that the people shall have received.
I would contend, Reverend, although not completely disagree with you, that while that does make sense, for those going out to the polls next year, knowing how badly coalitions have been managed in our country, especially in Gauteng, I think it would put the mind of voters at ease to know who you could potentially get into bed or not, because somebody who may vote for ACDP might be completely against the EFF, and you might get into a partnership with them afterwards. And now it's too late. The vote has been cast.
Now, whose policies will be promoted? Because if you go as a pact, are you going to promote the DA policies, or are you going to promote, if ACP participates, ACP policies? The fact is that if you go as a pact, there must be agreements about what to promote. And we cannot promote something we do not agree with, that our voters disagree with. So we think it is fair to promote what ACDP stands for. And we say when we go into a coalition, we will not support.
Looks like we may have lost the Reverend for a second. We're going to give it just a moment and see if that connection come back. It's always great fun, isn't it, doing Zoom interviews when you can see it, stage 6 blackouts, top of your screen. I'm going to wait for my team to let me know if the Reverend is back with us, because I want to pick up on what the ACDP Deputy President said. And I want to quote, any opposition party moonshot political process that fails to be inclusive and fails to properly consult, and where one single party positions itself as superior to others, will be left hanging in space. That was the words from the ACDP Deputy President. I was hoping to get Kenneth Meshoe back on, but looks like his Zoom has failed us. My team will tell us later if we are going to try and get him back on. But for the moment, I'm afraid the blackouts causing chaos once again with Zoom. We've all been there, haven't we? We've all been in meetings where the blackouts and the load shedding are causing a bit of chaos. My apologies. We'll see if we maybe can't get the Reverend back on a little bit later, see if we can't just finish that conversation.